5:30, and it's time to start the meeting. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. I'm a little disappointed in the crowd. I was hoping there would be more people here, but we'll work with what we got, right? So we're going to call a meeting to order at 5:30, and we'll do a pledge of allegiance to the flag, and the flag is over there. And Ann, you want to do it?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business, approval of the minutes of May 16th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to accept as written.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made by Mr. Finch and second by Ms. Hartley. Any questions? Any reviews? No, nothing? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, so the first order of new business is the public hearing for the CDBG block grant. And just a couple of things. We're going to have the presentation done by Ms. Lane, and then after that happens, we will open it up for a public discussion or public opinions, questions and answers, and then we will vote on it. So that's the way we're going to move forward. Stop that. So, Ms. Lane, if you'd like to come up and make your presentation.
I will. Thank you.
Before she does, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Seeley is on his way, and I am going to recuse myself.
Okay.
So, is a public hearing on the proposed affordable housing open? Because it's three of them, actually.
Excuse me?
Is it open? The public hearing open?
Yes, it's open.
Okay, good. I have to read to you, I apologize, that's how it goes. Community Development Block Grant funds are available to municipalities through the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Up to $500,000 annually is available for economic development projects, up to $500,000 for housing projects, up to $500,000 for public facility projects, up to $500,000 in emergency funds, up to $25,000 per planning study grant, and this is a special one, up to $1 million is available for each permanent supportive housing project, grant project under the CDBG CV allocation due to COVID-19. All projects must directly benefit a majority of low and moderate income persons. This is a proposed application. Oh, before I keep going, I want you to know that there are handouts available at the door. This is a proposed application to the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $1 million in CDBG CV permanent supportive housing grant funds. Of the funds, $25,000 will be retained by the town for administrative costs associated with the project. $975,000 of the funds will be sub-granted to Laconia Area Community Land Trust, doing business as Lakes Region Community Developers. The funds will be used to redevelop the former St. Agnes Church property at, and I need to correct here, we had said 19 High Street, it's 19 Hill Ave, so that's a correction, I apologize for that, into 11 supportive housing units and a staff apartment along with community and supportive service space. This project conforms with Ashland's proposed housing and community development plan's goal of encourage a varied stock of safe, sanitary, and housing, decent and affordable housing for persons of all age and income groups, which is a short-term and a long-term goal. Does the board have any questions on the proposed project?
I have one. Is this for Ashland residents?
It's for anybody.
Further questions from the board? Currently, there's no other questions from the board.
How about the public? Can we ask?
You have more to?
I have two more public hearings, but can we ask for a public comment on that part, on the proposed project?
Are you finished with your presentation?
Well, I have two more public hearings. So-
Okay, I got it. Okay, so this particular part of the public hearing is open to public comment. And you raised your hand?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
would
this
you
is the
would you
one
do this,
St.
ma'am?
Agnes-
One thing
I'm sorry.
before you start, tell us who you are and where you live, please.
Sure. My name is Heather Hatfield. I own a home on Church Street.
Thank you.
16 Church Street. And so this is the church right on Hill Street. the renovations that they're gonna be doing to house low-income families, what exactly are they proposing to do to renovate? Because we've heard as far as tear it down, and so because we were under the impression that St. Agnes was not going to sell to anyone unless it had to do with the Catholic ministry being furthered. I mean, I talked to the priest himself, and they said no. So is this a proposed thing, or is this something that is already fully in the works?
We have Sal Anson, she's from Community Land Trust.
Hi, my name is Sal Stephen Hubbard. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development with Lakes Region Community Developers. And the project is proposed to renovate all three buildings, the rectory, the church, and the parish hall. The rectory and the church would be interior renovations, well, also exterior improvements, but it would not be to tear down the church. It would not be to change the site in any way, but it would be to carve up the interior into 10 individual kind of studio and one-bedroom apartments. And then the parish hall would be a staff apartment for a staff member of Lakes Region Community Services, who would be our service partner in the project, and an 11th unit for one of their clients. So the clientele that we're talking about is young people with developmental disabilities or intellectual disabilities. The folks who would be housed are kind of, ready to leave their parents' house. They still need services. They don't need 24/7 services. They need some supports in order to be independent in the community. So that's the population for the permanent supportive housing that we're talking about. And then also in the parish hall, there would be community space on the ground floor to provide a communal kitchen so that people could have meals together and also learn how to cook, that people could learn other life skills, so there would be education, community meetings, and that kind of thing that would be provided by Lakes Region Community Services.
So why was St. Agnes chosen versus the mill or some other building versus, St. Agnes was just right in the middle of the neighborhood?
Precisely because it's right in the middle of the neighborhood.
But how
So-
are you gonna, how is this gonna affect?
One at a time,
long-term?
please.
No, go ahead.
Are we not concerned, I'm concerned of how it's gonna affect the families in the neighborhood. My grandkids live right across the street.
So this is supportive housing, so there are services there provided. Lakes Region Community Services provides services to hundreds of people around the Lakes Region, almost all of whom work if they're if they have developmental disabilities. So there is the supportive work, there's education, and also by providing an apartment on site for a manager, it means that there's somebody there to support both the residents and also for you to talk to if you have concerns. So the idea was that that particular site is walkable to the downtown area, so the supermarket, the folks could get jobs. There are quite a few people, I believe, at the Common Man who are supported through Lakes Region Community Services who work there. So there's job opportunities, and then it's also pretty available to the highway, so that folks who are receiving services in Plymouth or Laconia or can actually be accessed. And so Lakes Region Community Services has a van. They would pick people up, take them to supportive workplaces, and bring them back in the evening. So really it's precisely because it's in the neighborhood and folks can look out for each other.
What do you mean by folks can look out for each other?
So I think that integrating people with developmental disabilities into a neighborhood means that fear that you might have about people because you don't know them gets reduced, and they're better able to act within the community as beneficial members of the community.
You let her know what the size of these apartments are, please?
Sure, they're 1 bedroom and efficiency units.
Square footage, please.
So the square footage is between 285 and 420, I believe.
And that'll house.
11 participants in the program, and then there's a proposed larger 3-bedroom, I think it's 1,200 square feet apartment for a staff member, so that staff member could have a family there. And it would be part of their compensation package with Lakes Region Community Services.
I have one up there in the back, and you be next after him. Kendall?
Kendall Hughes with Winona Road. Doesn't the town have a minimum square footage of 700 feet, 700 square feet? And we've kicked other facilities like this because it didn't meet that square footage in the past.
That is
So
correct.
I'm wondering what the difference is.
That is correct. If this passes through the board, then it would have to go to the zoning board for a adjustment and see if they can pass it through there. So that's would be the process.
I mean, we had another facility that was doing the same thing with, again, 300-ish square footage, and they were told no because they didn't meet the 700.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Aaron Stout, 22 Hill Ave. I guess, well, I live across the street with my wife and 6 young kids, and our neighbors also have a little boy. He's, I don't know, 5 maybe, 4 or 5 or 6. But you could imagine, we hear that there's housing going in potentially for individuals who are semi-independent and have mental disabilities that makes us a little nervous for the safety of our kids, for the traffic on the road. You know, having a Catholic church or a vacant Catholic church across the street is a lot more favorable for a young family. I wondered if you guys have established programs that would be identical or similar to this one that we could look at to kind of understand what it means.
Interestingly, Lakes Region Community Services does not have a program like this, but they are partnering with us because they see it as kind of the missing piece in their programs. They either have people in this clientele who are overserved and have too many more services than they need, or are underserved and at risk of being evicted because they don't know how to sort of live in an apartment independently. This past week, we actually went up to Lebanon to tour a facility that's very similar to what we're trying to do. And I'd be happy to get you the information. It's called Visions, I think, and they have a place in Epping, and they have one in Lebanon. And the one in Lebanon I know is a similar size to what we're talking about. 11 residents.
Yeah, I'd love to take a look. When you say they're partnering with us, who is us?
We're Lakes Region Community Developers. We would be the developer of the property. Lakes Region Community Services would be the service partner.
Is there anyone here from services as a representative?
There is not.
Okay.
Tell us what the gender of the people that will be applying for this. Is it open to all genders, or what
Correct.
it is?
Yes.
Male and female?
Correct.
Did I understand you correctly that the caretaker lives in the
Deb.
separate building? Oh,
Deb
sorry.
Hughes.
I'm Deb Purdue from North Ashland Road. Did I understand you correctly that the caretaker lives in the separate building than where the 11 residents will live? Or 10 residents?
So there's one unit that we had planned for one of the supportive housing units in the parish hall on the 2nd floor. So that would have enough space for a manager's unit and one supportive housing unit. And then the other 10 units would be in the rectory and the church itself. But that manager is not the only person responsible for services. So folks who are served through Lakes Region Community Services get all kinds of services, including, you know, as I said, they have a van. Somebody talked about traffic. These folks don't drive for the most part. But there will be plenty of parking if for some reason they start to drive. But Lakes Region Community Services does have vans that they can come and pick people up, take them to their programs and bring them back. You know, there's supported work environments. I'm sure you've seen, you know, at the supermarket, somebody stacking shelves with a supportive person with them. It's that kind of supportive work environment for many of these people. Some people can work more independently than others, but so there's a whole range of services that goes along with.
But the caretaker doesn't actually live in the units where they live.
Correct, would live in the rector, in the parish hall, where there is only one unit. Yep.
What impact would the town expect on their services?
I don't think.
Fire, police, ambulance, that sort of thing?
I don't think that the town should expect any increase in services other than what would normally be expected if you had a building redevelopment for fire, police.
Do we have any history of these types of settings? Do you have any history on them?
No, I don't.
So we don't know.
No.
Well, the rehab will be all new, so the fire.
Well, yeah, so
They'll be
we'll have,
spiffy.
right, we'll be building to new fire codes, so, I'm a huge proponent of sprinkler systems, because we have, you know, 375 apartments around the Lakes region, and have never had one burn down, thank goodness, but have had a couple of situations where there have been fires, and sprinklers have put out those fires and saved lives. So, you know, we would do the same thing here.
Yes, yes. It'd be good if you stood up so we could see you. Thank you so much.
Doesn't help a whole lot, I'm not real tall. So two questions. One, so what you're saying is there is no direct supervision. So all of them are in one all of the residents are in one building, and the overseer is in a completely different building. So there is no direct supervision. After a certain time of night, they went to bed, and so there is no actual direct supervision, correct?
Correct, it's supportive independent living, yes.
Okay. But not so independent that they could drive or things like that. So you're still talking about folks that do need the extra help because they're here.
Sure, and they could walk over from the church to the parish hall.
Or to my grandkids' house, or to people next door, or to places that they really shouldn't necessarily be. But, so the second one is you said that, you know, you're a great, huge proponent of the fire stuff because you've had fires and the sprinkler systems put those fires out. How did those fires start?
There was a lady, in one of our apartments, there was a lady who was on oxygen smoking a cigarette. So,
But those are regular apartments.
those are regular apartments, right, that's not supportive housing. That is a lady on oxygen smoking a cigarette in her own apartment. Not supposed to be needing services, but, so.
Is
most- we
smoking
don't
going to be
have-
allowed in these buildings? You
No,
know?
smoking would not be allowed. All of our buildings are now non-smoking. This was a few years ago, before we changed all the rules to make them non-smoking. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, people do things.
Valid question.
People do things. We just had a situation where somebody put a tea kettle on the stove, walked out because it was smoking not allowed, walked out to have a cigarette, forgot the tea kettle was on the stove. Not a good situation. I'm not trying to blame it, I'm an ex-smoker, I'm not trying to blame it all on smoking, but But there are, people, there are situations, and so you have to have like good construction and good fire
Be prepared.
suppressions and be prepared, yeah.
So are there certain times that somebody would be there to supervise them? And is there like, say, a curfew where they need to be in and maybe there's alarms on the doors or anything safety-wise that,
So most people have their individual supports throughout the day, sort of from morning till evening. Then they go home and into their apartments, and no, there are no alarms on the door. It's independent living with supports, and so there's somebody there on site. If they have a problem, they can go and ask for help. It's also somebody who can go and check and make sure that everything is calm and all that kind of stuff. So, neighbors would know that if they had a problem, they could go to that manager and say, I have a problem. So that manager lives there on site. And so that person is there overnight. But it's independent living for a population that is in between needing 24/7 support and no support at all. It's that kind of middle group of people.
What do you anticipate the age range to be?
It's probably young people, like 20-ish at the beginning, but we don't expect that there'll be people moving out all the time. I think that once people move in, unless we have to evict them because they are not good neighbors, I think that they'll probably stay there a long time. There's not a lot of this housing around, and it's really needed, and so people will age there.
But you're anticipating young people?
In the beginning, yep.
Yep, okay.
Those are the folks who are really telling their parents and Lakes Region Community Services that they want to be out on their own. If they're not able to be out on their own because they don't have this type of housing,
What supports these people for money or buying things,
So,
other
yeah.
than trying to get a job?
people get Medicaid and SSI. And so most of their support comes from those two pieces, and then they get a job and they have a little more spending money, but most of their money goes to support their apartment, really.
So you get most of the Medicaid money?
We do not. Our budgets are pretty much zero-based budgeting once we pay for all the expenses. So we pay property taxes, we pay insurance, we pay property management, we pay heat and electricity. So being a nonprofit developer means that we actually make money through the development process. There's usually a developer fee built into the overall budget for construction. We make money off the developer fee, and then the operations make us little or no money at all.
What I'm trying to get in my head is what's left over for these people to live on. And, obviously, there's not going to be a lot of money for Medicare, Medicaid.
So this is so great, because I have had those
Right.
questions, right? Because it's not really my field, but I've had those same questions. And the way that the Medicaid and SSI budgeting works is a portion of their income goes to what is called room and board. So basically, food and lodging. And then there is also spending money built into that, but each person has their own budget, and there's spending money built into that budget. And Lakes Region Community Services manages those budgets for people.
Further questions, sir?
Yeah, is there gonna be a meeting or a hearing where we can talk with someone from the
Just
services?
tonight's the night.
No, from
We would
service.
be
From
happy
from
to
Lakes
service.
Region
Oh,
Community
no,
Services?
well, tonight's the night we vote on whether or not we approve it. So,
We could arrange that.
We can I'm happy to
'Cause
arrange that.
I mean, the development is one thing, like, I'm concerned about property value, but much more concerned about talking with someone about the actual services. That's where, most of our concern comes from, I think.
So we will need to go through the planning board process for approval of change of use, and there will be an opportunity there. In fact, we met with the planning board informally, and the executive director of Lakes Region Community Services was there, and she will come back again. And then we also need to go to the zoning board of adjustment on the size of apartments issue, so there would be an opportunity there. And then we're also happy to just meet with neighbors at a time that's convenient to you to explain all this stuff. Tonight, we're here hoping to get approval to apply for the funds from CDBG, but that doesn't mean the project is approved. Still has to go through your town process, and as I said, we're more than happy to schedule a town, a discussion for neighbors, as well as going to the planning board and the zoning board.
So tell us what happens if, we'll just do a scenario here. If you go to the zoning board of adjustment and they say, no, the rooms are too small, you have to make them larger, you have to meet the 700 square feet minimum requirement, what do you do then?
I'm not sure we would move forward with the project. We'd have to talk to Lakes Region Community Services. They are concerned that if the units are too big, that they will be a little overwhelming for folks to take care of. So we want people to be successful. So part of that success is to create apartments that are appropriate for the population. I gotta say 700 or 750 square feet, I don't remember which the number is a typical 1 to 2 bedroom size, usually a 2-bedroom unit. And a 2-bedroom unit, we could maybe do something where we double people up, but that's not as independent as we would like to do. So we'd really have to revisit whether or not we move forward with the project.
Well, frankly, I can't picture 2 bedrooms at 700 square feet, but do all of these individual rooms have facilities for bathrooms?
Yes,
Every one of them?
everyone has a private bathroom
Okay. Thank you.
and sort of a kitchenette, not full kitchen, kind of a kitchenette.
Further
Sorry,
questions?
two more questions. So these are all people that have a diagnosed condition of some sort?
Yes.
Okay.
And they would all have a diagnosed condition of either intellectual or developmental disability. So it's not mental health, it's not substance use disorder, it's particular population that is intellectual or developmental disability.
Okay, and then if no one else has something else, I guess, I don't know if this is the right forum or who the expert is, but how can I expect this project to affect my property value across the street in a 4-bedroom house?
Well, the value of that property is gonna be how many million when you're done?
Right. It will improve your property value because we will absolutely will.
We got a lot of experts. Who's the real expert?
How many million is this?
Well, we're expecting this to be about a $2.5 million project.
Construction price.
So we will be doing a complete upgrade of all 3 of those buildings.
What about perceived community, safety and, you strictly improving the value of a property next door, but using it for something different? It's not necessarily,
Correct.
it feels like apples and oranges to me. So,
Correct, and I
don't know.
understand why you might be concerned about that. There are a lot of studies that have been done on the impact of affordable housing, so not this particular type of housing, but affordable housing on surrounding values. And typically, affordable housing that's done right does increase the value of, you're shaking your head, but you could read the studies, and which I do because I'm kind of a housing woman, but, and it does improve surrounding values. I'm not talking about properties that are affordable because a landlord allows them to drip into disrepair. I'm talking about the type of affordable housing that Lakes Region Community Developers does. And you can look on our website, you can see what we do, and make up your own mind from there. But I promise you that if we were to do this project, you'd be pretty proud to live across the street from it.
Further? Kendall?
Do they have any other projects in Ashland?
Yes, the Ames Brook Apartments. We
And would you
renovated
consider
that.
that raising property values?
Because it definitely has not.
After what we did to it in the last couple of years,
Yeah,
it
it's
certainly.
dropping.
Real estate agents.
Who has property for sale up there? We've been trying to sell it.
I am guessing that the value of those properties next to what used to be there, Ledgewood Estates, and what is there now, which is Ames Brook, it's an entirely different.
Yeah, and he's there more often now.
My
Eli?
name is Eli Badger. I live on Oak Street here in Ashland. I don't think that you are going to be able to answer the property value unless you go to other situations that are very similar to this one, where they have development with issued housing. I think some of the people would be, it would give them a better understanding of what might happen to their property values if you actually showed them.
Is there a question here, Eli?
It's a question statement.
I think it's a good
Okay.
statement, yeah. Makes sense.
All right.
It's a comment.
As I said, I just went to this place in Lebanon, I believe it's called Visions. So I would suggest that, that you see what you can find about that.
Where is that located? I know in Lebanon, but where?
Let me look on my phone for my directions from.
I worked in Lev forever.
Oh, it was very close to the downtown. See if I can find it. Well, I know, I can find it on my calendar.
There's the one right on the green.
Not quite. Hit Green Street, 12 Green Street, Lebanon. And there's two buildings, one set behind the other, it's a rehab.
Further questions? Oh, somebody in the back there, sorry. Could you give your name and address, please?
Sorry.
Name and address for the
Tim
record.
Alexander, 25 Winona Road. You may have already mentioned this earlier, but I was late getting here. Is there the potential to change the classification for who's eligible to stay in the housing? And then what kind of things would make somebody ineligible to stay there? You know, a sex offender or somebody that has drug abuse issues, are those people still eligible to stay there if they fit the other classification? And then just to be clear, the second question was, can you change the classifications later on?
So the classification question goes to, so I'm going to answer those kind of backwards. The classification question goes to the fact that we are applying to New Hampshire Housing for funds through their supportive housing program. So they'll come up with what's called a land use restriction agreement, which kind of says what we have to do and for how long we have to do it. Typically, I think under the supportive housing program, it's a 20-year restriction. And then, so the folks who would live there would come through Lakes Region Community Services, and we would refer them to apply for the housing. We are not looking to house people with substance use disorder. We are not looking to house people who are sex offenders. We are not looking to house people who have any other issue but intellectual or developmental disability. So I don't really know how else to answer your question, but there are regulations that come with the financing that we're looking for, and that kind of drives the bus.
Okay, so the financing is what regulates who can stay there?
Correct.
And that can't change for 20 years?
I believe it's 20 years under this supportive housing program.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
It's at least 20 years.
20 years for CDBG.
So at least.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else that'd like to speak? Then we'll close this part of the public hearing.
So can you open the public hearing on the housing and community development plan?
Sit down, we'll run the meeting, don't worry about it. So, talking to the board now. The issue before us is the public hearing on the CDBG block grant for the conversion of St. Agnes Church. And the issue is whether or not we will sign off on the application for the $1 million grant. Everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what it is. Any comments from the board? Suggestions from the board? Alan?
Mr. Chairman, because of possible conflict of interest that I sit on the ZBA, I'm going to step down at this time.
Okay, so we have two members that are recusing themselves?
Yep.
I see it as a potential conflict of interest down the road.
Okay. All right. So is there any motions here? If not, I am not very happy with what I've heard. So if I'm going to make a motion, it's going to be for the lack of experience that you have with this type of facility, with the type of folks that are going to be using this facility, and whether or not you have enough supervision. The neighbors are concerned about this, and rightfully so. They have young children. We don't know what the impact is. I'm not comfortable with the whole project as it is, just on that base alone. So I'm going to make a motion to deny the application.
I second.
Okay, motion made and second.
I
All in
agree.
favor?
In favor.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the motion fails. So there'll be no point in the following. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for your inconvenience, but, you know, I think you need, but
appreciate the time.
I think what you need to do is you need to get more information on experience with this type of project in this type of town with people that have, there are butters with young children that have concerns. You need to find a way to relieve those concerns.
Well,
Thank you.
maybe next time have someone from LRCSC to come, and then that would be, it wouldn't just be all on you to answer the questions.
Thank you for the advice.
You're welcome.
All right, you're welcome.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Thank you. Thank you.
So, with that, the following 4 items are not necessary.
Correct.
And the next item we'll bring up is the warrant of the first half property taxes, if it's ready.
Mr. Chairman, I have that. First half property taxes are $3,483,134.45. Require a signature of each member of the board.
Okay. So the tax warrant for the year 2022, 23?
22.
22 is $3,483,134.45. And I will move that as a motion to accept the tax warrant. Let's move it forward.
I will second.
Second. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, that's, we all got to sign this, so.
Yep.
Put it down to Andy first and bring it back to me. With that done, we have the next article is the 2021 Abatement Recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, we have from our assessor a recommendation on the Squam River Hydro and the Squam River Power, who filed an application for 2021 using 2014 data from the Department of Revenue Administration, which is 8 years out of date. It is recommended that the board reject both of those applications for abatement as they're incorrect.
Okay. So,
Would
I need a motion.
A motion to reject the abatement?
Right, both abatements.
deny.
Perfect. I would make a motion to reject both of those abatements for Eversource.
I'll second. Okay, second for him. Okay, and all in favor of that? Or any questions first? And nothing done? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is acceptance of a gift of up to $5,000 for materials in the form of a raft for the town beach, according to RSA 31:95, small c. And Ann, terrific job. Deb, terrific job. People who worked on this.
Tim?
Everybody who worked on this is terrific.
The raft is...
And we'll have a raft at the beach this summer. Would you like to speak to it?
Yep, the proposed raft is a 12 by 12 pressure-treated raft frame with cedar decking on top. Comes with an anchor package and a ladder, donated from the Purdue family, my family, and Tim's family.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And it's made by Center Harbor Dock and Pier. If we order it in the very near future, it can be here before 4th of July.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Stout at 22 Hill Ave. I have 6 young kids, and I think that sounds great.
Well, Ann has, she has a school for training the kids how to swim.
Oh, yeah.
Swimming lessons too.
Yep. So we need to make a motion unless there are
Yes,
further
but-
questions?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's no problem. I think we're ready, no other public comment on it. Thank you. Make your motion.
Sure. I would make a motion to accept the gift of up to $5,000 in materials in the form of a raft for the town beach.
I'll second it. I think you're going to recuse yourself.
Yeah,
I don't.
I'm gonna have to. I'm all for it, but.
Okay, the motion's been made and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And the motion carries. Thank you very much. You have anything else for new business?
Just one thing on old business, Mr. Chairman. We pretty much completed the review of the cemeteries in town, at least the Green Grove Cemetery. As you know, there has been a question as to that particular cemetery and its relative position to the town. Originally, that was part of the combined town of Ashland and Holderness. And when the towns separated and became individually communities, it's interesting to note that the town history says that the original Green Grove Cemetery are the playing fields at the Booster Club. And the town voted, after acquiring them, to in fact exhume all the graves and bury those people in the new Green Grove Cemetery. So the Green Grove Cemetery, as it stands, was no longer a piece of town property. That property where the current Green Grove Cemetery is will have to receive some investigation through the Registry of Deeds and through our abutting community to see who actually owned that, who it was deeded to, and who had the actual deed for the property. The statute requires a 3/4 majority vote in the affirmative in order to sell that property. We need to find out whether or not the town actually sold it, because I can't find a vote saying the town did. I can't even find a vote saying the town owned it. So we're researching the Registry of Deeds for those two questions. I can tell you that the town probably did own it, because we got up into the 1880s. The town voted $700 to build a town tomb. In those days, we didn't have power equipment, so we could not, in fact, dig graves in the wintertime. So the bodies were interned in a tomb owned by the town, and people paid for that service. And we have up until 1919, where the town received funds using the town cemetery for interning people temporarily, and they were paid for that. So sometime between 1900 and, say, 1930, we have to read the town meeting minutes and information from the individual town meetings to find out whether or not, in fact, the cemetery was sold. I suspect it was.
Just to clarify things, with the beginning, when you talked about the town moving the people from one place to another, was prior to the separation of the towns.
Actually, it was following the separation of the towns.
Following?
Right.
So when was it? When was that?
1881.
Okay. Well, they built the town tomb in 1871.
1868.
68, excuse me.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
This was 100 years ago.
It's interesting history.
Just a check on the corner. What happened here was that there were no individual, and I've read the legislative history creating the town. There was no individual properties named that were to be deeded to the town. That was done by a committee, and there doesn't appear to be any record of that at all in the town history. So somewhere along the line, I suspect that there's a deed in the Registry of Deeds that shows that, in fact, the property that is now the Green Grove Cemetery was in fact purchased or given to the town, or was actually town property at the time the town was divided. And somewhere along the line, there was a vote of the town by 3/4 at a town meeting to in fact transfer that property over to a non-profit corporation, which is not unusual. Unfortunately, it's the only one of the states, and nobody seems to be able to find the paperwork for it. But that gives you an up-to-date briefing, and I have quite a lengthy dissertation here on what happened with the individual property owned by the town. So
The reason why all this came up is because the trustees want to dissolve these funds. Is that correct?
that's correct, and it would appear that some of those funds, in fact, were accepted by town meeting.
And there's not a lot of money in them.
Not as significant. I mean, we're not talking millions of dollars,
No.
but we are talking funds that have to be protected and used for perpetual care and things of that nature.
Right.
So we'll eventually get to the bottom of it. We're closer and closer and closer. That's all I have.
I just wonder if there might be anything in the archives down in
Well,
Concord.
it probably would be in the minutes of the individual town meetings, which were all handwritten in those days. And I wish I could write so neatly, I'll tell you. The old script writing is very beautiful. But I've read some of those minutes in other towns, and I can tell you they are as legible and well-written as if it were done yesterday. They're very, very good. So we will eventually get to see all of those minutes to find out exactly what happened to that piece of property. And we will eventually find a deed someplace, although we've not been able to successfully find a deed in the Registry of Deeds as of yet. It's got to be someplace. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Interesting. And just so everybody knows, it's just the Green Grove Cemetery we're talking about, not all the individual cemeteries that are on private property around town. There are other cemeteries in Ashland.
There's 9 more.
Yeah. That's a whole different,
Ball of wax.
yeah, a whole different ball of wax, indeed. Okay, well, thank you for doing that, Fred. I know you've been putting a lot of time into that. Thank you. Any other new business? Selectmen's items? Okay. Good. We do have to have a non-public because we look into a labor issue tonight.
That's correct.
So, thank you very much for everybody for coming.